I love tripping, right? And I've done it quite a lot. I've taken handfuls of the skankiest mushrooms you've ever seen. I've felt the universe collapse on my stomach and undo itself all over my chest. But nothing makes me vomit more than hearing people talk about them. Like they're a goddamn portal to another dimension. Look, I love Terence McKenna, right? He's clearly some kind of legend. But, folks, he made an awful lot of shit up. Mushrooms do not talk to you. They do not help you talk to ethereal, omnipresent beings. They are not seeded from another planet like little alien time capsules. It's just fungus, Terence. It's just fungus that fucks you up. And it doesn't make you understand things, mushrooms. If anything, they make it fucking impossible to understand things, thereby teaching you the importance of understanding things, teaches you not to take understanding for granted, which is in itself a form of understanding in the same way that liver cirrhosis is a form of motivation. And I simply have to punch the shit out of the space next to me whenever I hear someone say, oh, psychedelics really free you of your ego. We're the enlightened ones. You just wouldn't understand because you're not free of ego like me. Fuck you. Fuck completely you. Free of ego like me. Free of ego like me. It's a short sentence and a simple premise, but let's unpack it, shall we? I am free of ego. There's your problem. Nothing frees you of your ego. You are your ego. That's why it's called you. If you think at any point in your life that you are in a state of no ego, then what's in fact happened there is that you've become so consumed and so smothered and so ravished by your ego that you think you're above it. You're just too damn awesome to have an ego. What you've basically done there is you've sleep-raped yourself into a post-traumatic false memory, a delusion within a delusion. You've turned a sphere into a ring, you have punched a hole in your personality through which all stimulus can pass freely to the other side, you abominable wanker. I've heard about high horses, but you're on a horse that's so high, it thinks it has no ego. Sorry, folks, you have an ego. Live with it. Deal with it. Embrace it. Why not? You look in the mirror for the same reason that you eat and drink. Because there's an object in this universe that you've decided is you, and you've elected to maintain it in some way. In fact, if you can look in the mirror and recognize the person you see, then you know yourself, ergo ego. If you see yourself in the mirror and you think it's an intruder, fair enough, you have a less than average ego. But you also have an enormous brain injury. I don't know about you, but I've never been that high. Not even close. And believe me, I have taken enough mushrooms to induce complete amnesia. Literally, didn't know my name, didn't know who I was, didn't know where I was, didn't know any of the events that had ever happened. But when I looked in the mirror, I knew it was me. Every time. It kept morphing into a swollen, purple, four-headed zombie from hell, but at no point did I not realise it was me. All four zombie heads were me. Why wouldn't they be? So, most animals, when they see themselves in the mirror, do, in fact, think it's another animal, it's an intruder. So you might say the only animals that can have this sized ego are us, if you'll pardon the pun, higher primates, and dolphins, and octopus. Have they done things with octopuses? I'm thinking of something else. My knowledge of animal neuroscience is slightly less comprehensively absolute than my knowledge of human neuroscience. But this may be an interesting rhetorical way to address the issue of ego size. The idea that different people can have different sized egos. You could say that different species have different sized egos because they have different brain structures, but different individual humans are hardly different at all. They're practically clones, even cerebrally speaking. I mean, you can tell yourself right, that your neighbour has a bigger ego than you, but again, the fact that you need to tell yourself that is, I'm sorry to say, a symptom of what you call a large ego. There's the guy prancing around the bar, trying it on with every chick he sees, going, "Oh, look at me, I'm awesome." And then there's the guy sat in a dark corner, musing on the world's problems and the delicacies of the human condition. Yes, that would be me. One of them's lost in thought, the other's lost in hormones. They're both lost in themselves, and that's kind of what ego is, the ability to get lost in yourself. Most animals don't get particularly lost in themselves, they get lost in the woods or something. So, ego is an ability, not a capacity. A big ego would be like a big personality. Big is the wrong word, is what I'm saying. People say big personality to mean extrovert, but an extrovert is no bigger than an introvert. They have the same capacities. So does everyone. Even an utterly unremarkable personality is the same size as a colourfully eccentric one. So saying I don't have an ego is like saying I don't have a personality. Or I don't have an accent. Although that's another one some people do actually say. With a straight face, no less. I don't have an accent. What? How caved in does your skull have to be for you to make that sound with your mouth? I don't have... It's like saying I don't have a shape. You know? Shapes? Other things are shapes. I am the universe. Obviously, the very worst offenders in this field are usually artists, lowbrow performance artists in particular. Yes, people like me, but allow me to be the first to admit, fuck yes, I have an ego. I mainly use it to flagellate myself in self-hatred, but the idea of doing it on camera, let alone on stage, would probably seem like a silly idea were it not for a substantial ego. Ergo. Now, as a general treader of the boards, I've met a fair few other such artists, and it's a continuing source of maddening what the fuckery for me to hear so many of them say, oh, ego doesn't come into it at all. I just do it for the art. Where the fuck do you think the art comes from? You ingrowing prick. No, I suppose it's no, it's your purely altruistic calling in life to be the centre of attention while you make loud, uninformative noises at people. You just happen to enjoy it. This is what I mean when I call someone an egomaniac, which I sometimes do. It doesn't refer to an ego's size. If anything, it refers to an ego that doesn't know it's an ego, right? There's sort of an inverse law going on. The more of a self-centered douchebag you are, the less likely you are to realise what a self-centered douchebag you are. Go and talk to the guy who cleans sewers for a living. Ask him if he's got an ego. He'll probably go, I suppose so, yeah. Occasionally I see a dead rat floating on a raft of turds, and I think to myself, you know what, I'm better than you as a person. But ask Bob Geldof if he's got an ego. He'll be like, it's not about that, I'm doing it for the starving children. Doing what, Bob? Karaoke. You can make 1 billion people watch you whine your way through that one good song you wrote 30 years ago. That'll stop the AIDS epidemic in its tracks. That'll make every drug-crazed African warlord stand up and go, what are we fighting for? It's only food. Sorry, I have a hard time understanding things. Too many mushrooms. Goodbye, and fuck